be seated. Respect. When Mr. Grant sent out an email asking who would like to speak in the Faculty Chapel Week about the theme of respect, I responded instantly. Why? Why not? Respect is at the core of what I love about Appleby. I leapt at the chance to share my views. The date of Mr. Grant's request was October the 29th. I responded immediately. Little did I know that 1 month later, I would be reminded why respect is at the core of Appleby College. I will get back to that later. Academically vital, technologically empowered, universally diverse, community-spirited, actively engaged, globally responsible, the 6 Appleby pillars. I would challenge that these 6 pillars stand on one foundation: respect. So, to properly share with you why I feel respect is so important, I have to give some context. How did I get to that point? I'm a teacher, a constant student. I prefer stories more than lessons. So let me share some stories. Although I've been at Appleby for 16 years, I wasn't always here. My story is quite similar to the stories of many of you. I was educated at a private school right here in Oakville. I'm the youngest of 3 daughters, each one of us with boy names: Neville, Marty, Andy. My dad's a huge hockey fan. He was captain of his university hockey team, fantastic center forward, and based on my name and my sister's names, I think he probably wanted a team full of boys to play hockey. We had a lot of fun in our backyard rink, and anything active for that matter. I attended St. Mildred's Lightbourne School. Many of you know this school. Some of you may have gone there. It's an all-girls school. I attended the school from kindergarten to grade 13. Grade 13, I know that sounds like I'm a dinosaur. We had grade 13 back then. It was phased out about 2 years after I graduated. I loved my school. Despite being a little shy, I believed in my school, and I wanted to give back. I had the privilege of being athletics prefect in grade 12 and head prefect in grade 13. Prefects could hold positions for 2 years. I had immense pride in my school and respect for what it stood for. I put my heart and soul into the roles I was given. I loved walking through the halls, knowing people's names, connecting with them. I felt pleased if I could add value to their day, or if I could advocate when I felt the rules were unjust. From there, I went to the University of Western Ontario, just like my parents, just like my sisters. I joined a sorority. I made friends. For the most part, I enjoyed my time there. However, I did not have the same bond with my community. People were worried about their image, their clothes, if they had a car, if they had a nice car. But I had a core group of friends. They had my back and I had theirs. If we were down, or if I was down, there was always a friendly hand to pull us up. As a group, we didn't care about the car. We cared about the core: respect. My first job was teaching at an alternative school in Toronto. An alternative school is one where there are many grades in one class, and the children get to decide what they want to work on. You're probably asking yourself, why didn't you just work at Appleby or St. Mildred's? That's a good question. I went through a phase of not wanting to make it easy on myself. I wanted to show that I could do things on my own. When I was elected athletics prefect, there were lots of whispers from some jealous peers who said, she just got the job because her 2 sisters were athletics prefect ahead of her. I wanted to show everyone that I could do it, I could make it where people didn't know me. I wanted to prove to myself, self-respect. I applied for a teaching job at Alpha Alternative School in Toronto. I saw the ad in the paper. Perfect, I thought. No one knows me there. When I interviewed for the position, there were many candidates waiting in the hall of the school, waiting for their turn. I still remember the anxious faces on the candidates' faces, the smell of floor wax, how I studied the finger painting on the walls just to buy time and to make it look like I was relaxed. When it came to my turn, I heard a voice in my head say, "You've got this. You came from a good private school. You had leadership roles. Your resume is full of places you've gone and experiences you've had. I walked into the room to face a panel of 6 teachers ready to interview me. They blinked with a bored look and said, "What is a prefect?" In fact, I think they actually said, "What's a perfect?" I thought, oh my goodness. I wasn't getting respect for this prefect title that I'd hoped, but I still had hoped they would respect the person. The rest of the interview I cannot remember to this day. When it came time for recess, I was told to go outside and play with the children, or be with the children, rather. I didn't know them. They didn't know me. A voice in my head said, "Make the children feel comfortable." And so I played with the children. We laughed, we giggled. I tied shoelaces when they came undone. We played dodgeball, jumping games, TV tag. Little did I know the panel of the teachers were watching me from the 3rd floor window of the school. I got the job. A few months later, I was having a sandwich with my teacher friend, and she said, "Yeah, we weren't really sure of your resume. We'd received many outstanding resumes, and we actually wanted to hire a male. When we looked out the window and saw you in the playground, we knew we had the right person. You got down low on the level of the little ones. You didn't boss them to get their attention. You joined in on a game that mattered to them, and you weren't afraid to look silly. You showed them respect. You showed respect for our community and what we value, our children. Respect." 3 years later, I'd taken my love of teaching to work with the visually impaired at the CNIB, and that stands for Canadian National Institute for the Blind. I taught adults and children who had lost their vision, or they'd been blind from birth. I saw people at their most vulnerable. Many felt with no vision, they had no future. I did my best to show respect, and at times, this was more difficult than others. I remember arriving at the door of a woman who'd lost her vision as a young child. At 11 years old, imagine this, at 11 years old, her brother had been playing with a bow and arrow, and the arrow went through her eye. Slowly, over the years, the ocular fluid inside her eyeball leaked out, and she was left blind in one eye. Really terrible story, that's for sure, but that's not the worst part. She was bullied constantly after that. Her parents were poor from rural Quebec, and they couldn't afford the treatment to get her a prosthetic eye. Her eye withered in its socket, and eventually she wore a patch. As an adult, she still dealt with the stigma. When I arrived at her door, she tested my level of tolerance and how respectful I would be to her. She greeted me with an empty eye socket. She then put in her fake eye and asked me to let her know whether her new prosthetic looked better or the old one. I was smart enough to know this was a test for me. Would I be respectful enough when seeing her at her worst? Would I accept her? If not, this would be my first and my last visit. I passed the test. Respect. During this time period, I kept coming back to Appleby College. I was now married, and my husband was an alumnus of the school. He was helping to run the tomogamy program. Through various Appleby activities, I was drawn to the school. Before I knew it, I stopped fighting the chance to do something familiar. I was asked to help start the service learning program at Appleby. I was so excited. I started in September 1998, and my first child was 6 months old. I was able to combine teaching with helping others in the greater community. Within days of working here, it was apparent. I liked what I saw. The faculty cared for one another as people. They were a hardworking group who were deeply concerned about the well-being of the students. Respect. Then the bottom fell out of my happy world. Serious health issues hit a member of my new little family, and I was shattered. I was shattered to the core. I needed to regroup. I would have to step away from a place which I was beginning to love so dearly. I remember going to see Guy McLean, who was the principal at the time, and I said, I owed him respect for hiring me and trusting me. I stepped into his office and I said, "Hi, Guy. Thanks for meeting me today. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to quit. Family must come first right now." He paused, he stood up, he walked over to me, and he gave me a hug. And I remember vaguely thinking in the middle of the hug, wow, this must be really bad if Guy McLean is hugging me. He'd never hugged me before. And then he sat down and he said, Andy, we would love to have you at this school. We would have you work here 10 hours a week or 100 hours a week. The choice is yours. He knew what was truly important, and I will never forget it: respect. 2 years later, I was back at Appleby in full swing. I wanted to show respect to the place that had clearly given it to me. I was living on campus with my husband and our 3 kids, ages 2, 3, and 4. Our neighbors were the Grants, the Sakonics, the Shields, the Stewarts, Ken and Lennox. Our children played together outside in a big gang. We looked out for each other's children. Each family fed whoever was in their kitchen at lunchtime. We tied lots of shoelaces, we wiped a lot of noses, and respect was a way of life. Fast forward to 2014. Respect is still at the core of Appleby College. In fact, I would argue it's even more pronounced now than it was 16 years ago. Let me just give a few examples. Appleby's Got Talent on January the 31st. I was in the audience, and it's probably the best example of respect. I think it's probably the best event of the year, this year. All the performers respected each other. The sound and lighting was professional. The audience, so supportive. The atmosphere, positive. Teachers were there on their own time, with their husbands, with their kids, watching, supporting. Some brought their kids to watch. Miss Cater performed the fiddle for the first time in public. She's only been learning it about 7 months. Mr. Cambry was at her side, helping her and encouraging her, but standing back to give her the spotlight. There were student performers. This is the best part. And my husband noticed this too. There were student performers behind. Kanishka was there. And they all were willing Miss Cater to do well. They knew it was stressful for her. They were supporting her gutsy move. The judges were funny, entertaining, but contestant after contestant, they only said the positives. Respect. We had a conference here a couple weeks ago, and you guys may have seen all these adults walking through the dining hall. It was the ISEEN conference, teachers from all over North America having a conference, seeing our school, getting our feedback on what we do in Temagami, etc. The kickoff was at the Holiday Inn, and I followed Mr. Van Nostrand speaking, I followed Mr. McGinnis speaking, and Mr. Stamper. And I was standing there ready to speak to a room full of teachers, which is sometimes the most nerve-wracking. And I heard Mr. Stamper's voice sound tense. And I thought, oh boy. Came time for me to speak, and I put my notes down. And I said quite simply, I was standing here listening to my colleagues speak, and I was very nervous. I thought to myself, why are you so nervous, Andy? Then it came to me. I'm anxious because these people are my colleagues. They are my friends. We are very proud of our school. Now you're hearing about our school, and tomorrow all you people are going to be coming to our school to meet our students. I hope you like our school because it means a lot to us, and we respect it. Respect. The conference lasted about 4 days, and one delegate, a distinguished visitor who happened to have been the head of a university in Arizona for 11 years, said he'd visited a lot of fine schools all over North America in the last 2 decades. He said from the moment you walk onto a campus, you can tell the vibe. He said ours in one word: respect. I'm always struck by the school spirit and the amount of respect you students have for each other when it comes to sports. Walking around to the different fields during soccer season, walking into the bubble during volleyball, walking into the gym during a basketball game, walking into the arena when the Blue Dogs are playing. While watching these games, I'm often asked by a student who's just wandered up, how are we doing? Not how are they, the under 14 team, doing, or how's the varsity team doing, but how are we doing? How is our school doing? You have immense respect for your teams. Respect. I had a class of middle ones in the outdoor classroom one May day. We were having a logging debate, part of the middle one curriculum. Middle ones love it. They can connect with nature. They get to play a role of a logger or a miner or a First Nations person, cottage owner. We were in a heated debate. In fact, one student, I encouraged her to do this. She brought in chains and chained herself to a tree, just to make it effective. Then a student who I won't name stepped forward. This student was from Korea, and she'd been struggling with English all year. In fact, I was quite worried. She spoke so seldom that I did not know what her voice sounded like. During the year, I gave her as much support as I could. I knew it must be very difficult for her. All of a sudden, I heard her voice. She spoke English for the first time that I'd heard. Her peers had never heard it either. The class stopped moving. They stopped talking. It felt like they'd stopped breathing. The only sound was this student's voice. It brought tears to my eyes. She'd found her English voice, and everyone was respectful in sharing in the moment. Respect. 2 weeks ago, I was filling in for a faculty member who was sick at her service co-curricular. It's called First Mentors. Big Brothers and Big Sisters puts this on. They come to Appleby, and little brothers and little sisters who've lost their parents come to our school for activities. And we bring energy, and we build relationships with the children. There are adult volunteers as well who drive the students who are considering being a big sister or big brother. I walk in and I see Alex Gutile, who was in the program last year. This year he's helping to lead the charge. I also recognize 2 Appleby grads who are amongst the adult volunteers, grads from 2007 and 2009. So they're volunteering. I watch them as they watch our students lead the program. They are impressed with the level of respect our students are providing the little ones, the care, the attention to detail. And then I see the Appleby students observe how some of the adult volunteers actually play the games with the little kids. They join in. They're part of the vibe. I reveal to the current Appleby students that they are in the presence of Appleby alumni. I see smiles exchanged, conversation. The respect for each other is evident. They recognize that each one is making a difference, and they share a common tenet of respect. Respect. Early in October, it was a Tuesday morning, and I woke to the sounds of my cell phone ringing downstairs. It was 7 a.m. I had slept in. I've never done that before. My alarm had not gone off. I ran downstairs to see a text message from my sister. Mom has fallen down. She's hit her head. Blood everywhere. She's in an ambulance on the way to the hospital. Come quickly. I was in shock. My mom had been ill for a year, and we'd all been helping to care for her. I ran around in circles. I needed to get dressed. I needed to drive my kids to school. I needed to be in the classroom at Appleby in less than an hour. I stood in the closet, and my husband threw clothes over my head. He drove me to the hospital. It was too late to get coverages from my classes. I had not planned to be away. What would I see at the hospital? I texted Mrs. Buckmaster, my friend, my colleague. Her response? Jelly, no problem. I'm on it. Don't worry. She even went to my period 1 class to wait for the coverage teacher, as she knew it would be tight timing. Just like my core friends at university, when I needed it, she had my back. Respect. When I came back to school the next day, I told my middle ones I was sorry to leave them in the lurch. I explained my mom had to go to the hospital without much notice. They were very kind. A week later, out of the blue, this little middle one said to me, Mrs. Jelly, how's your mom? How's your mom? Respect. So back on October 29th, I agreed to give this talk on respect and what it means to me. I know that because I have the email trail. Little did I know that exactly 1 month later, I would have my feelings reinforced. On November 29th, my mom died. She was my best friend, the one who taught me to respect everyone, the one who showed me the value of listening. She would chat with the butcher, she knew his troubles. She would visit with the person who bagged her groceries. I've had people all over Oakville cross restaurant floors or a floor of a store saying how much they loved her and how much she touched their lives. It was and still is a tough time. Appleby was there for me. Mr. Grant acted as a gatekeeper for me. He didn't let people know about my loss until I was ready. He knew that I would not stand up well to people giving their condolences in the early days. My department acted like a protective bubble when I came in. When I came in and out those first few days. They looked out for me as a colleague and as a friend. Respect. Appleby has it. It's all around you. You are fortunate. We are fortunate. We attend a school that has 6 pillars: academically vital, technologically empowered, universally diverse, community spirited, actively engaged, globally responsible. But the bedrock that supports these pillars, the very foundation that defines all things Appleby, is respect. Would you please stand and sing hymn 425?